Welcome to On Scene with Richmond County Sheriff's Office. I'm your host, Lieutenant Kimberly Lee.
And I'm Lieutenant Lucas Grant. And we have our special guest here today, Captain Danny Whitehead. Thank you for being here.
Welcome.
How you doing today?
I'm doing well, and I'm excited to be here today with y'all.
Good. I know we go back a little bit.
We do.
Way before this show, I would say in 2012. So it's definitely I'm glad that you're here with us today. But if you would, introduce yourself to the people. Let them know a little bit about yourself and your career here at the Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Danny Whitehead, born and raised in Richmond County. Started with the Sheriff's Office in 1996. Started off in the jail when it was located across the street at 401 Walton Way. Went through the police academy about a year later. And from there, I kind of worked my way up through the ranks, and I'm currently the captain over the North Precinct.
All right. Yeah, we like I said, we met in 2012. I was just coming out of the academy, and you were in traffic. In fact, what rank you were then?
I was a sergeant. I actually was a traffic car for several years, and then I was the DUI task force, and then a traffic sergeant.
Yeah, I learned a lot from you guys then. I really appreciate all the help y'all gave me back then.
Oh yeah, you were a handful back then, just as you are today.
I was going to say something, but I'm glad you said it. You said you are the captain in the North Precinct.
That's right.
So what zones does that cover? Because we kind of talked about zones in one of our past episodes. So if you can kind of explain what that is and what zones you're over and kind of what you do.
Yeah, of course. Yes, as you're aware, we have 8 zones. I'm on the North Precincts, which is zones 1 through zones 4.
Okay. And as the captain over the zones, what's your responsibility?
It's the administrative side. Help oversee the day-to-day operations of the road patrol. It also includes the traffic safety division. And obviously, as the commander, if you would, of the precinct, I'm also a member, as y'all two are, of the Sheriff's Command staff.
Okay. And I know that we had Linda Gould here. She is our in-house counselor, and she mentioned you. When we were speaking with her. You're also responsible for some peer support here at the Sheriff's Office. If you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, as you were, Linda came along with us on contract. She started, and the story behind that is kind of funny. I was tasked with trying to find a counselor for the agency, along with David James, who's now with the state of Georgia's critical incident team. And we made a couple phone calls, and I called Linda up and just asked her for some advice and maybe point me in the right direction, someone that would be a good fit for the agency. So I thought about it, and I got back with Chief Clayton, and we spoke about it. And then I asked the chief, what are the qualifications we're looking for? Because that's a very critical position to hold within this agency. So we were trying to look at different bases covering it. So just thinking about it, Linda was a perfect fit. So I thought maybe I'll call her back, and I did. And she obviously was able to set up the interview with the sheriff, and she got the position, which we are blessed to have her. As far as the peer team goes, the agency had a peer team before Linda got here, but Linda kind of took it to another level, if you would. And the peers' responsibilities are we want to take care of each other. And how do you do that? You have to have someone that, has been there before. And we try to match people. If it's an officer-involved shooting incident or whatever it may be, we try to match them with that person who's, they've had that history and they understand the ins and outs of the suffering. And we will hold peer critical incidents whenever we have something.
Okay.
Being a part of a group like that, if you can explain to the people, what does that mean to you? Because it's a lot that comes with that, when you're involved, like the incident you're talking about now, officer-involved shooting. Like, how does being a part of that group in your role help someone who's been in an incident like that?
Well, I don't want to use the word rewarding, but for me, a lot of times, and I tell people I get a lot out of it myself, just speaking to people and being able to help them. Being on the traffic division for many years, I've seen, unfortunately, way too many fatalities. So having that opportunity to help them through a crisis, whatever it may be, to get them the help they need, it means a lot.
Absolutely. And I wanted to talk a little bit about piggybacking off of what Lieutenant Lee said when it comes down to the zone concept, yes, you are over zones 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that is a big task. But if you could tell the people, especially from an administrative side, a little bit about those people who fall up under you and the responsibility they have within the community in those zones.
Yeah, I would love to. So to kind of explain it first, why did we go to the zone concept? Because as if you can remember, we had the beat system in place for many years. Yeah. Even when I started back in the 90s, the zone concept has proven to help decrease crime. And the reason that is because it actually breaks areas down geographically, into smaller areas, which means you can get more officers in there. But it's also the accountability part. So the zone commanders, the accountability comes with them. The zone lieutenant, they are pretty much running their own they're like the chief of their little area. And what that does is, and when it goes back to the accountability side, it makes sure that, they're on top of what's going on. They can see trends. They can see what we call now hotspots, and we'll talk about hotspots a little bit. But that accountability is there, and then obviously from them it goes down to their sergeants and corporals, and then to the deputies. And, we know for sure, and all leaders know that your number one resource is your people.
Correct. That's correct.
No matter where you are, which organization you work with. So that's kind of a breakdown of what the zone concept is and why we do it, because it allows us to deploy more manpower to areas that are known as hotspots, which is usually areas, like I said, that are small and size-wise, but they've got a concentrated amount of crimes, and usually we're talking about violent crimes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I know that one of the sheriff's initiatives, or one of the things he wants to do, is decrease gun violence. So the hot spots and things like that, that's something that you kind of focus on, not just you, but the agency focuses on, and I'm kind of a target for those hot spot areas, that auto thefts and other like violent crimes and things like that.
Yeah, it is. In majority of almost everything we do, when you look at hotspot policing, it's all intel driven.
Yep.
And, we are blessed. We're lucky here to have a great intel division. Mm-hmm. They provide that data to us, and it's done through mapping. And we're able to look at Part 1 crimes across the county, wherever they are. So we'll know which areas, whether it's Zone 1, Zone 7, Zone 8, where the problems are at, where does that manpower need to be at. That way, we're not just driving around all night long without any type of plan. We want to make sure when they leave, they have a plan in place, and they know what they're going to be doing for that whole shift, whatever it may be, whether it's an 8-hour, 10-hour, 12-hour. But we want to make sure that they have a plan, and that is all data-driven.
Okay.
So, piggybacking off of that, especially when it comes down to like violent crime that we have going on within our community and trying to prevent it. Sheriff talked about in the first episode of the improvement of technology. And we have went to a few things that you've been involved with when it comes down to like flock cameras. Can you tell the people a little bit about how that technology that we're using now has improved our opportunities to help solve certain cases?
Yeah, so we are always, as y'all aware, looking for innovative ways to do all kinds of things to improve, whether it's in our employment levels, to fighting crime, whatever it may be, to improving ourselves. And one of the things, like you said, the sheriff's number one goal has been gun violence. Mm-hmm. Speaking of technology, last June we did deploy 25 flock cameras. Those 25 were actually given to us for a survey, a test, and they were following the activity, and we were having here in Richmond County. Right off the bat, within a week, we've seen a huge improvement. And when I say improvement, recovering stolen cars. Sometimes if you have a car stolen, someone may either joyride it, or it may be weeks before it's recovered. The flock camera has allowed us to recover them within hours now. Yeah. Within 3 to 4 months, we've seen almost 60 stolen vehicles recovered. Our criminal investigation division has solved couple or several murders just due to the cameras. So we are taking advantage of that. We have recently got the funding to deploy more flock cameras. We have more coming. We have another camera project that's in the process of being put together, and we're excited about that. Yeah. But we want to take advantage of technology and anything we can when it comes to reducing violent crimes.
Right. And I know Sheriff, he spoke about that as well in the first episode. So if you want to talk about that upcoming project, please feel free.
Yeah, and I'll just touch on it. Like I said, with the implementation of the other flock cameras we have coming, we are in the process of a downtown camera project. And I'm hoping that, that we're at the beginning stages of it and we can kind of get it up and running.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know when we talked about this episode, there were some things that I said that I felt like was important that we needed to discuss, especially you being a captain, and you're talking about just reduction in crime and things like that and what you expect from your lieutenants. There's no secret that we just had an incident of domestic violence where it ended tragically. It also ended with an officer-involved shooting. We talked about that with the peer support. But I want to talk about, because being in internal affairs, we do get telephone calls from victims and things like that with the response for domestic violence calls. So I just want to, we talked about the complexities of them sometimes. There are some that are cut and dry. We see them, we respond, we see injuries. We know who that primary aggressor, now it's called predominant aggressor. So we do the arrest, we do the warrant, and that's the end of it on our end. But there's some that there's no clear path to an arrest. And we ask them to take out warrants and go through that process because at that point we can't make a determination on, an arrest or anything like that. Can you kind of talk about law enforcement's response to domestic violence in those type calls?
Yeah, and I'll start off with just a response. Those calls always require two officers. And the reason is because we know they're dangerous calls. They're very dangerous for all parties involved. And normally when they get on scene, the first thing we're trying to do is to separate the parties that the altercation occurred between. And what we want to do then is we want to identify who is that predominant aggressor, and that's either through injuries, statements, whatever it may be. But unfortunately, a lot of times we get there's conflicting stories. There's no visible injuries that have occurred, and the officer will take notes of that. And as you're aware, speaking of technology, we have body-worn cameras, and a lot of times the cameras are used to make those notations as far as injuries or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But we do run into the occasionally where there are no injuries, there's conflicting stories, and we have to make the decision then, how do we go forward? So what we do is if there is one that, we can give them, if you would, the orders on how to go down and take out a warrant. We also look at the history. How many times have we been at this house? How many times has this happened? How many times has it occurred? Has the, if you want to call suspect, have they been charged before? Is this a vicious cycle? Because a lot of times we find it is a vicious cycle. It occurs over and over and over again. But when we have those victims, we want to educate them, and make them aware of a temporary protection order. That's one thing they can do, and they can actually get with any local family law attorney, or they can even do it on their own, just get some assistance. But and I know you've got some numbers wrote down there that you can kind of give out on it. But what we do is, and we file a report per state. We are mandated on things that we can and can't do when it comes to domestic violence. And we file that report, and then we do it. Now, if we can identify who that, that primary or predetermined whatever aggressor is, then we do make the charge and we arrest them.
Okay. And some of the numbers, and these are from the state of Georgia, 1,493 known family violence-related fatalities in Georgia from 2012 to 2021, and that's actually a 57% increase in those fatalities. And then known family violence-related fatalities in Georgia in 2021, there were 212. So that's a lot of actually identified ones. And I do know that just looking at reports and things like that, there's a difference between you have a family violence report, and that's something that some people don't really understand, that there has to be some type of relationship there for that part of it. But there are also other terminologies when it comes to just some of the things that can happen in the home, like criminal trespass. Why is it that, and as opposed to something else, and or why they couldn't make somebody leave the house. They call us because they want some response, but there are just some things that we just can't do because of the law. So that's just one of the things. Like I said, I do know they call, and sometimes what I let them know is, look, if you're not happy or satisfied, or if you have other questions, request a supervisor to come out to the scene. So can you kind of talk about that? If they do request a supervisor, what is that deputy supposed to do?
And we'll kind of go back to the beginning of that. And you're right, we are mandated to do certain things by the state of Georgia, how we handle domestic violence. But in these cases where if they don't feel like they're getting the help that they need, we do ask that they request a supervisor. And what would happen in that case is the supervisor would come out and speak to whoever that is that wants to file the complaint. And then also it kind of like a second eye, someone else looking at it, did the deputy miss something? Is there something we can do? But you also have to understand that, we don't have the authority to remove someone from their house if there's no charges. If we can't prove that something was done. That's something that someone would have to go through the actual judicial process to do through the courts.
Yep.
We don't have that authority, and we don't want to have that authority just to remove someone. Now, like I said, if there's a history there, or we can show that that person is definitely violent or future violence may occur, we are going to try to make arrangements, however that is.
Right.
And if there's children in the house, we're going to contact DFACS as well. So we take multiple steps when it comes to domestic violence.
Okay. And like I said, it's no secret that these things do happen just locally. Those numbers are for the state of Georgia, but it does happen locally. So I would be, I feel like irresponsible just because of things that just occurred. And it does not miss Richmond County. It goes across every socioeconomic household. And even doing my research, we're talking about teens and their intimate partners and things like that. And it can be male, it can be female. It's not just, only females can be victims or only, and then the males can only be the suspects. So we do look at everything, and there are things that we can and can't do. And I think that's just something that's important to get out there. And one of the resources, we talk about resources, one of our main resources I know that we do talk to them about is Safe Homes, which is local. But just looking at some of the numbers and looking for resources, I did find like the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That's something else that they can reach out to, and I have that telephone number here. It's 1-800-799-7233 or 1-800-799-SAFE. You can also text. Everything has a text now. You can text START to 88788. And everything you do through there is free. It's confidential. So if anybody is experiencing that or just have questions, don't know what to do, want to know how to make a plan to exit or get out of that situation, I think, like I said, sometimes we can't do anything because of the law, but we can give you resources and we can give you help for that. So this platform is what that's for. So.
And that's very good information that you just put out there for the people to know, because in those kind of situations, a lot of people are afraid or don't want to come forth because of what could, happen to them, knowing they've been through something like that before. And if they say something now, then it may be a point where we won't be able to help them. So definitely good information of getting out to the people. But Captain, I want to, ask you a little bit about some of the deputies that are under your leadership. I've heard so many good things about you. I've seen a lot of good things when it comes down to you. Like I said, I had the opportunity to know you back in 2012. So
we even coached together a little bit.
Absolutely. We even coached a little peewee football.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
But I get opportunity to hear a lot of young men and women say how important you've been throughout their careers, and I'm sure that means a lot to you. But if you would explain to the people just what does hearing things like that about your leadership skills, you being a mentor to some of these younger officers here in our agency. What does that mean to you as you progress forward in your career?
Well, it means the world to me, but I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those that did that for me.
Right.
I'm just trying to give back to. I've been blessed and fortunate to have some great leaders coming up through my career, and they played a vital role in where I am today, and in the direction I go in the future. But it means a lot to me. I spoke to an officer earlier, actually a sergeant who will soon be a lieutenant, and we sat down and discussed. He asked me what did I expect of him, and we kind of talked about leadership. And I told him, I said, you're in that fine line when you become a lieutenant or a commander. You're that first line of management now, but you also have to know how to take care of your people. But we always, because our mission's always agency first, and that we always got to keep that in the back of our mind. Because, we work for the citizens, that's who we work for.
Correct.
So we want the best agency that we can have. And I do think we have the best agency.
I agree.
By far. I get to travel and network, and I'm telling you, we are lucky for the agency that we have. But I told the soon-to-be lieutenant, I said, look, I expect you to run your zone, and I expect you to provide great leadership and develop other people. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I wouldn't be here if I didn't have that. And you said the word earlier, mentors. Yeah. I've had great mentors during my career. So whenever I have the opportunity to mentor someone, I do that. I was actually just Kimberly last week. I think I loaned her a book.
Yes, you did.
I had to do a book review. It was a 28-page book review.
It's a very thick book too.
Yes, I'm currently in a class at Columbus State, and one of the assignments was a book review, and the book is The Unnatural Act of Management is the name of it, and I was telling Kimberly about it, and it's a pretty good book. So once I got done with it, and then someone else had read it, and then I made sure I got it back, and I passed it on to Kimberly so she could get it.
Now you put me on blast, and now I have to read the book by the next episode.
But I'm just trying to give back what was given to me.
Yeah,
that's it. Because I think if we keep that going, if we develop those under us, because there will come a time that we're gone. We're going to leave this agency, and I seen a thing, and y'all have probably heard it before. Is it stumbling blocks or stepping stones?
Right.
Do we want to leave those behind us, stepping stones or stumbling blocks? Obviously, we don't want them to stumble. We want them to step.
That's correct.
So we need to make sure we have those things in place.
And just to piggyback off of that, I know we have officers who go through certain things, whether it's on the job or off the job. And the question was brought up when we spoke to Linda. How do officers separate home life versus work life? And if you could just talk a little bit about that, because these officers, they're in their patrol cars majority of the time, which is like their office compared to someone like me and you. We actually have a office, but they're in their patrol units. They're out encountering different situations or seeing different things, and then they have to go home and try to decompress before getting out. How do you talk to the officers that are under your leadership about being able to separate that?
Well, when you said the word decompress, that's it right there. Because they do, and it's not always just the internals, the external stuff, the factors they deal with. A lot of times, we've been here lately, we've been labeled, police officers just in general have got, a bad name. And I try to remind the younger officers, that 99% of the community wants you out there. They believe in you, and they need you out there. You just don't hear them. Right. Usually you hear that 1 to 2 or whatever percentage it is that has negative things to say. But you take that and then you take what they see and what they do every day. By the end of a 12-hour shift, it's long. It's draining. Yeah. And you don't want to take it home. You have to find a way to separate the two. And you do that by decompressing. But you also have to understand, if you have someone at home, if you have a spouse or a good friend that you need to talk to, if you don't trust someone else to speak to, you need to speak to them. You don't have to give them, we talk about you can give them the G-rated version. Rather, it's some type of scene that just something you can't forget about. And it's not even always about what you see, and I tell people when I do debriefings, it's sometimes, my biggest thing I still remember is just the sounds. The sound that a mother makes when she finds her son has been shot and killed. Right. So there's a lot of parts to it, and these officers they carry that load. They do more today than any officers have ever done during my career. They have to wear all kinds of different hats, and we expect a lot out of them. And so they've got to find that way, and they can do that by obviously eating healthy, exercising, in-house counseling, rather it is with Linda, or if they want to go outside of the agency and find some type of counseling.
Right.
But they have to have some type of activity, something that they do. Because I had that problem, I think, as you did early in our careers, is you know, and it was all about every single thing. It was 24 hours a day, eating, everything about police work. But for us to be healthy and provide the service that we need to, we got to take care of ourselves first.
That's correct.
Because we're not doing anybody any justice. We're not going to do a job if we're not taking care of us first.
Absolutely.
And once we take care of that, the mental side and the physical side of our bodies, we can then produce the performance that we need to.
Yeah. Well, I know that is very important, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because the mental health side along with the physical side is very important, because if we're not taking care of ourselves, we're no good to no one. It doesn't matter how good we are at whatever we do. If we're unable to take care of us first, it just you won't get anything done. So I definitely appreciate you talking about that. But there are some other projects you've been involved in, and of course I'm always ecstatic to talk about the stuff that you've been involved in. But if you would talk a little bit about the verified response that we have going on throughout our agency and the community.
Yeah, and that's a hot topic, and I know it was at first. And let me explain this first. You know, verified response, obviously, if people are not familiar, is talking about responding to false alarms.
Right.
False alarms have been a burden on law enforcement across the country for decades. This is not something new. It's something that's just come up. And we started looking at it, and we started looking at the resources that we have, and we started looking at our manpower was being diverted from other public needs. So we went back. We probably did research for about a year and a half before we decided to go to verified response. And we looked at all the data, and we actually ran a small model of it for about a year with some other local government agencies that had cameras already in place, and it was successful. So what it means is if there's a burglar alarm that goes off, and you have some type of video or audio that verifies that there is an intrusion, we're coming. We're coming as fast as we can safely to get there.
Right.
But if you look at the stats, almost 99% of the alarms that we were going to were false alarms. And these were set off either by human error or some type of mechanical problems. So, you know, we can't justify responding, and just to give you the numbers, a little over 50 a day. And that's how many false alarms we were going to.
Pretty big number.
That's a big number. If you look at the number and you add 15 to 20 minutes to that, you're pretty much taking 2 to 3 officers off the beat, off the zone for an entire shift. So we looked at some of the verified response models the other agencies across the country were doing. Some states, some courts have actually even ruled that it's not a law that you have an alarm. So what that means is if I go out and purchase an alarm, that's a contract between me and as a private individual and a business, and that you shouldn't be servicing taxpayers' money for private contracts. A lot of actual agencies or local governments, they now have security companies that respond to alarms because they've seen the difference. Because, like I said, almost 99% of them are false. And I can tell you during my career of 26 years in this business, maybe I can think of one person was actually taken in custody during because of a burglary alarm. So there's almost no correlation if you look at the numbers and the data. But you also have to remove the fear tactics to see those numbers.
Right.
And, you know, we have to get to a point where we do put people over property sometimes. Now, and I know, you know, if you have an alarm and some people, well, they're not coming. Well, with 99% of them being false, we had to find something else to do to not divert our manpower.
Right.
And we can get them back into the places that they need to be. Since we've implemented it, we've been following it, following the data. We're right now, since we went, probably about 9,500, over 9,000 calls we would have went to if we wouldn't have put it. And we have not seen an increase of burglaries because of burglar alarms. So none of that's there. And we will always change if we have to.
Right.
We'll look at it. And the sheriff, that was one of the things he said, we'll monitor it and keep him updated. And if we ever see it's an issue, and then we'll revisit it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I saw just pulling reports in the Internal Affairs Division. We also do open records requests. And I noticed just the number that we are on the reports, we're still on 0 something for the case number. And I'm like, it should be higher than this. And somebody was like, well, it's because of the verified response. We hadn't had as many calls to residents because of burglar alarms. So that's one of the things that I noticed. I was like, wow, this is, I feel like it was pretty drastic because over, 400,000 calls that we've done, like even last year, that has significantly just reduced, and it looks like it won't be that many calls that we'll be responding to this year because of that.
Yeah, close to 20,000. And I actually put a pie chart together. Like I said, we didn't just pull this trigger without some type of research. This is not something that we just sat down and like, hey, let's do this. We looked at the numbers, and we wanted to make sure what was best for the community as a whole.
Right.
And so we obviously, we put those numbers together. We put a presentation together. We did a pie chart, matter of fact, and to show the difference between some of the calls of service that we get compared to the alarms. And it was just mind-blowing, the amount of manpower we were wasting during that time and over false alarms, something that's caused by human error or whatever it may be. Now, with that said, panic alarms, we still go to those. Any type of duress alarm, we're coming to those. Those are humanly activated intentionally. So those are the alarms that we do respond to. If it's verified, there's new technology, these doorbell cameras or the alarms companies who have cameras. Once it's verified, like I said, we're coming. And before, it was under an understanding that if it wasn't verified, it may take us 30 minutes to get there anyways.
Correct.
Depends on where we were coming from. But now that we know it's verified, that gives us hey, there's a visual or audio if someone's in the house, and then we can actually respond. But overall, so far it's been successful in allowing us to divert our manpower to other public needs for the citizens of the community.
Okay. That's pretty, like I said, just that one change. And just being on the command staff since, I believe, September of last year, that's one of the things I think it's important for people to know is we just don't pull the trigger on something just because it's like, oh, this looks pretty popular or, this is how, it's a knee-jerk reaction. We actually have to do the research and look at things. And you're in school now and you hear about what other agencies are doing, and we come back with ideas and solutions, and it's not just, all right, I heard about this, let's do it today. It's research, and it's intelligent based, and so to see how we can better serve the community that we're in. I live in this community in Richmond County, so I think people should know like what's going on here, and that we are looking at the best solutions for to keep them safe.
Yes, like I said earlier, when starting off the show, I'm born and raised here. My family lives here. My mother still lives in this town. But everything I've done my entire career has been for this community, and as all police officers do. We want what's best for the community as a whole, and what does that look like? So there are times when we have to make decisions on certain things that we may have to cut out. But we do them, like I said, with everything on the table. It's not just that knee-jerk reaction.
So unfortunately, we starting to get ready to come to the end of our section of the podcast with you. But it has been a great opportunity of having you here on this show with us. I'm sure the people who are going to get the opportunity to see this podcast are going to be very thankful for the information you provided. But one thing I want to ask before we come to an end is another thing you've brought to the agency, and it's the leadership newsletter. Can you talk to the people a little bit about what it means, why you brought it forth, and how do you see it continuing moving forward?
I can. As y'all both are aware, we do lessons in leaderships on the after command staff. We also do them on the operations side after comp stat. And what that is where a member of the command staff or operations gets up and gives a presentation on leadership. And a lot of times it may be from something, a class that Kimberly just talked about, maybe something where they just came back from. And they share it, and a lot of it is about when we give those presentations. It's about us growing ourselves. It's about developing, learning to put something together, learning to get it in front of people and speak in front of your peers. So there's a lot that goes into those presentations, and I've always enjoyed them. And there's a lot of good information.
Yeah.
I just wanted to find a way to get that information to the frontline supervisors. I think the frontline supervisors that's probably the most vital, most important position we have within this agency or any organization. They are the ones that are out there every day with the troops. They're the ones that, they need that information. So for those that were looking for a way to continue to develop themselves and grow as leaders, I wanted to share with them what we get. What are we putting out? Because I feel it's important, like I said earlier, that we develop them and we give them the tools. Now, obviously, it's up to them if they want to read it.
Right.
Some people learn, by reading, and so it was just, let me throw something together, and we can, talk, different little things, and we kind of added on it as we went, and kind of introducing different commanders as far as the command staff goes. We look to continue to grow it. I hope to sooner or later delegate it to someone to develop them. That's on the horizon. But no, I think it helps us kind of get what we're getting out to the frontline supervisors who normally wouldn't get that information. And if we want them to be the best, if we want to be the best agency, we got to make them the best.
Correct. Continue to be the best agency.
Yes, and we will continue to be the best. But we have to do it in all different ways, just like y'all are doing here. Sitting here, this is a great way to reach the community. I applaud y'all for what you're doing, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on and be a part of it.
You will be back. Just to let you know, because you have a lot of information, a lot of things that we're doing in the community, and you're spearheading a lot of things that I just learned about here today. So you'll definitely be back, and we do appreciate you taking time out to come here today.
That's right.
Thank y'all again.
Well, it is time for the Zone Report. We want to talk to everyone about our 9 p.m. routine where we're making sure everyone is locking their vehicles, making sure that their valuables are in safe places so that they don't become a victim to anything of this nature when it comes down to vehicle break-ins or entering autos.
In that, don't forget to set your home alarms, and if you have weapons in your cars, please either find a safe for those or remove those from your vehicles, and that will prevent firearms from getting into the wrong hands.
Absolutely.
And another thing in the Zone Report we want to add is auto thefts. We've talked about, and you've heard about our flock camera system, and that has been a great investigative tool for us here at the Sheriff's Office. Last year we had 607 auto thefts, and the flock camera system has actually been able to assist the Sheriff's Office in recovering a lot of stolen vehicles. But one thing, I know it's getting warm, but we're still having some cold mornings. People still like to kind of heat up their cars in the mornings, but it's leaving you susceptible to having your car taken away from you. And I know when reading some reports, some people forget and leave an extra set of keys in their car. So if they have not locked their car, all you have to do is get in there and they find the keys and they go, especially if it's a push to start. So, or if you're running in the store right quick, but you want to keep your car running for some reason, they're taking them. You know, there's some people, when I talk to I think it was a property crime, someone in property crimes, and they were just talking about there's a group that they're aware of that's going around, and they're just looking for that opportunity to take a vehicle. So if you can just take that moment and take your keys out of the car, lock your doors when you go into a store, you will probably more than likely prevent that type of a crime. So we wanted to add that to the zone report in addition to the 9 p.m. routine.
Yeah, because it's all about prevention. Any way that you can reduce the attempts that anyone would try when it comes down to motor vehicle thefts or just taking property from your vehicle or your property itself. You want to reduce that as best as possible by staying safe as possible.
Absolutely. And one of the things they're looking for is something quick.
Yes.
And get in, get out, and get moving. So let's make it a little harder for them.
Correct.
To take the things that we work really hard for. And now also, we do like to highlight a missing person from our cold case files, and also a wanted person. In this episode, we would like to, we have a missing person. His name is Wilbur Lewis Hughes II. Mr. Hughes was last seen on August the 25th, 2020 on the 1700 block of S.E. McIntyre Boulevard. He has no known medical conditions, and the clothing he was wearing at the time is unknown. They do know that he may have been driving a black Cadillac. He was eventually reported missing on 10/18/2020. So if you have any information, please contact Investigator Ron Sylvester or the Richmond County Sheriff's Office at 706-821-1020 or 706-821-1080. And speaking with Investigator Sylvester, they are getting some leads in the case. So
that's good.
Just like we've said before, we'll say it probably each and every time. If you think that the sheriff's office may know the information, still tell us anyway.
Correct.
No matter how small it is, because that might be just that one missing piece of the puzzle to solve the case. So definitely, if you have any information on Mr. Hughes, please let us know. And also, we have Daryl Eugene Walker, who is wanted for murder. And this is one that you were familiar with when you were a homicide investigator, and you've had the chance to go on the national media to talk about this case. So if you will, and I'll just kind of read it here, but if you'll just give us a little bit of information into this case, and hopefully, like I said, I know in talking with you and being familiar with the case, this is one that happened here.
Yes.
But he was transient very quickly.
Absolutely.
And he ended up somewhere that we know of in North Carolina.
Correct.
And this is one of the reasons why I did want to start the podcast, because I do know that people move away from the areas, whether they have information on a case or not, or if there's somebody that's wanted. They don't stay in the area a lot of times.
That's right.
We have found and apprehended suspects in all over with the help of our federal partners. So just to have it broadcast here in local media may not do us justice. We have to expand our reach when we're talking about finding justice
Right.
For the loved ones here. So Mr. Walker is wanted in connection to an incident that occurred on the 1400 block of Ridgewood Drive on 2018?
That is correct.
If contact is made with Daryl Walker, he is considered to be armed and dangerous. So can you tell us a little bit about this case?
Yes. So anytime you go to these cases, you want to make sure you are look into all details that are going to help you locate the person that did it. And in this scenario here, we were able to identify Mr. Walker as being the suspect in this case. We also identified the victim's vehicle was stolen that day, and it was later recovered in North Carolina. But of course, we had not located Mr. Walker. Mr. Walker has been on the run since that date. And we have done multiple shows. I know I've been on the show Pursuit with John Walsh to get it out even more nationwide to be on the lookout for Mr. Walker. We've also been working with our federal partners as well to where he is also on the most wanted list. So if you have any information on Mr. Walker or know of his whereabouts, please contact your local sheriff's office if it's not here in Richmond County, or you can also contact the sheriff's office here in Richmond County to provide that information. But the most important thing, like Lieutenant Lee said, please use caution. He is armed and dangerous, and we don't want anyone else to be hurt or harmed.
Okay. And if you want to see more of that show, it was In Pursuit with John Walsh. I know it was on Investigation Discovery.
It was.
And it can also be streamed on Discovery Plus. So you'll get more information on that. You'll hear from Lieutenant Grant, also some prosecutors and more investigators, and from some of those federal partners. And I do remember when watching it, they said that they believe he's just so hard to find because he's comfortable.
That's correct.
Living like in maybe homeless camps and things like that. So comfort does not sound like it's a thing that he needs and he's looking for. He's okay with going to maybe homeless shelters or living outside of the normal means of what we would consider comfortable. So
absolutely,
with both of those, and to look at all of our active BOLOs, please go to our Facebook page. Also Instagram, they're also on there.
Yep.
And if you have any information on any of these cases, again, no matter how small you believe it is, please just call us, ask to speak with a violent crimes investigator, and we will go from there.
Yeah.
Okay. So just going back to, we've had a lot of events that have occurred since our first show. And we have a couple more coming up that we still want to remind you of. On April 22nd, it's DEA Drug Take Back Day, which those locations will be posted on our social media to where you can go and take those prescription drugs you may not be using anymore. They may be expired. You don't know what to do with them. You can participate in DEA Drug Take Back Day. That is Saturday, April 22nd. And also with that, and I forgot, we have a drug box that you can bring to the sheriff's office. It's right there at the entrance.
That's correct.
I've used it a couple times, cleaning out, doing some spring cleaning and things like that. So if you don't make it to the Drug Take Back Day, you can always bring those here. And we have a box right there at the entrance for that. April 22nd, there's also a Citizens Firearm Safety class. That's put on by the Community Services Division. So if you want to, you have to sign up for that one, correct?
Yes, so you'll have to sign up for it. You'll have to also have a background check completed, and it's a $20 fee. So if you are interested, you are able to come down to the sheriff's office, meet with someone in the Community Services Division who will help get you signed up and provide you with that information, as well as getting your background check done. That way you are able to be a part of the class.
Okay. And Wednesday, May 10th, as we get prepared to do our taxes, we're doing spring cleaning, it's almost spring break. We are able to provide the service, and it's a free service on Wednesday, May 10th, Shred Day, where we will, it's the papers,
Correct.
Not electronics, but
Correct.
It's papers. And there are some things that I remembered that we couldn't have, and we had to take some things apart. So if you are going to come down here, if you have paper clips, gym clips, and stuff like that,
Staples.
with your documents, if you can just remove those for us. And also, I know I'm guilty of it. I put everything in folders.
Right.
So if you can take those out of the folders before you come, we'll definitely help you do that. Do that if you forget some, or we'll do that before it goes into the shredder to assist you with that. But if you can help us make the process go a little faster, please do that. But you don't have to sign up for that. You just have to show up.
That's correct.
And come.
Yeah, and of course, we will make sure that everyone gets this information as well, because we'll post it on all of our social media sites. We'll also get it out through your office, through our PIO, to all the news media outlets. That way that information is spread throughout the CSRA for everyone to know when it's coming.
Okay. And some of the ways that you can contact the sheriff's office, we just want to remind you, of course, if you have any questions or anything like that, you can always go to our website. We always talk about the drop-down box where you can meet your zone lieutenant, and you will find out who that is when you plug in your address, and that person will come up. So if you have any questions, or if you want them to be anywhere of any suspicious activity in your neighborhood, you can definitely let them know. It'll give you their telephone number and your email address.
Absolutely. And just piggybacking off of what you're talking about now, of how everyone can get in contact with us, definitely please use our social media outlets, no matter whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Send us a message. That way we can get in contact with you, answer your questions to the best of our ability, or either get your questions on here, the show, on the podcast.
Yes, and we also, we're a CALEA accredited agency. So if you go to our website, you will see where you can make a comment on that CALEA public portal. That comment actually goes to CALEA, our accrediting agency, and then it will come back to us. So we will vet all the comments, and we will, from my office, actually, the Internal Affairs Division,
Right.
And if it needs to go to a lieutenant or a supervisor of whatever that comment is, that will be farmed out to them. So you may be getting a telephone call from our division to talk to you a little bit more about your comment. But in that, you can also do commendations for deputies. We know that they go out, and it's something that they're expected to do is, hey, they're supposed to do their job, which they do, and they do a great job of it. But some of them do go above and beyond.
Absolutely.
So if there is a deputy or somebody that you see that you want to praise, tell them a good job, let us know.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to not only the deputy itself, but the agency as well, because we want to hear those good stories. We want to know the things that officers are doing when it comes down to engaging with our community, to see just how important it is to the citizens of this county, as well as our deputies.
Yes, and we definitely want to start recognizing them on this outlet too. So you'll be hearing some of those commendations here on Scene with Richmond County Sheriff's Office.
Absolutely. But we definitely need to go into our recruiting, because we always want to make sure everybody understands we're looking for the best candidates. We want the best candidates to come here to work for the sheriff's office, to be able to go out within our community and serve to the best of their ability. So if you are interested, please come down. You can go to our website to get information in regards to application there, or you can come down to 400 Walton Way, and we will make sure we get you in contact with the right people when it comes down to getting you an application.
Yes, and we also have a full-time recruiter. So if you just want to call and ask for the recruiter, if you have questions and you want to know more about it, Lieutenant Chastain is our recruiter here, so he will be able to walk you through the process, answer any questions you may have. So again, if you go to our website, you can get everybody's information of who you need to contact.
Absolutely. But as we come to the end, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us once again through our social media sites. You can leave an inbox message. That way we're able to get your questions on our show and be able to answer them to the best of our ability.
Well, that's the end of the show.
That is the end of the show for today.
And we will see you next week, or you will hear from us next week.
Sure will. But until then,
have a good one.